Hello, everyone. So this is indeed a survey we carried out in November last in Calais on health and violence affecting refugees during their journey. Now, in 2015, there was the so-called migrant crisis, refugee crisis. More than 1 million refugees have arrived in Europe. It's one of the largest population displacements since World War II. Calais is located in North France. It's separated by only 30 kilometers of sea from Great Britain. Now, several events led to the creation of this slum in Calais. In 2002, the French government shut down the center of Sangatte that used to welcome Kosovo refugees. And these refugees had settled down around Calais and Dunkirk. In March 2015, the government decided to bring together all these people on a larger field close to a landfill or former landfill. It is a former leisure center called the Jules Ferry Center. And so all around this center, refugees settled down. And in September 2015, MSF joined Médecins du Monde to offer healthcare, medical support, and sanitation to this population. And we also opened mobile clinics around Dunkirk. In October 2015, there was a rapid assessment of the health needs for refugees. And as you can see here, the slum is outlined by a motorway that leads to the harbor. It's located in a field that is likely to be flooded by water. It's a former landfill. It's 7 kilometers away from Eurotunnel and 5 kilometers away from the city center. The population was multiplied by 4 from 1,500 to 6,000 between the beginning of the summer and October. Now, the health hygiene conditions are absolutely outrageous, as was demonstrated by our assessment carried out in September 2015. These are some pictures we took from the site. Now, the main objectives was to assess the health status of these refugees and also access to care during their journeys. We also wanted to describe the main routes they follow before arriving in France, and also the sort of violence they are subject to during their journey. So we carried out a survey. We started in November 2015. We decided to have a spatial, simple, random sampling in the so-called jungle, and also in the Centre Jules Ferry, dedicated to women and children. Well, here we carried out an exhaustive study. We had to draft the questionnaires in 9 languages spoken in this center. And we had to recruit people who have command of these languages. So for the jungle slum, 462 people were randomly selected. 425 accepted to participate in the study. In the Jules Ferry Center, we could interview only 50% of the people. This is why I'm going to tell you only about the outcome of our survey for the jungle. Now, in the jungle, there's a very vast majority of male, 95%, fairly young men, 25 years, of age. This is the median age, and a majority of them are single, 67.8%. Now, unsurprisingly, a lot of these people have a high education level, a high education degree. You can see. Now, these people come from East Africa, Central Asia, and the Middle East. 1/3 of them come from Sudan, and then followed by Afghanistan. The Kurdish population accounts for 13% of the population, and they mainly come from Iraq. On the right-hand side table, you can see that a majority of them come from areas where there are conflicts or very fierce wars underway. 80% of Sudanese come from the Darfur region. And for Syria, more than 79% of them come from Aleppo or Dera. Now, these are the routes. We wanted to highlight the routes taken by the refugees, and the thicker the line, the greater the number of people who take them. There are two main routes. One that starts in Sudan through Libya, the Mediterranean Sea, Italy, and then arriving in Calais. And the other one is starts in Afghanistan through Iran, Greece, Turkey, Greece, Eastern Europe, and then Germany and France. 77.6% of refugees arrived after the 1st of September. We looked at the length of journey in days and the countries they traveled through. On the left-hand side, you find the median time of travel. Usually, it is 100 days for all refugees. However, if you look at people from Africa, the length of journey is much longer, 399 days. On the right-hand side, you can see the length of stay in days. And in Libya, people are stuck for longer times. You see 180 days versus less than 10 days in European countries. And this, of course, is because people from Africa take more time to go through their journey. The medical issues, medical problems refugees experience during their trips, their journeys. 2/3 of these people we interviewed reported at least one medical problem during their journey. Most of the time, upper respiratory tract infections, and the majority of these problems occurred in Calais, 62.3%. Access to care, well, is very poor. 32.3% of people who experienced a problem in Calais couldn't access care. Violence. 65.6% of interviewees reported experiencing at least one act of violence during their journey, and the most critical situation is reported concerns Libya and Calais. The type of violence per country, well, it can be assault, tear gas, physical violence, forced detention. So if you look at it very roughly, the acts of violence are more numerous in Calais and in Libya. In Calais, the most frequently reported type of violence is tear gas versus a lot of cases of assault or repeated physical violence in Libya, and detention. Detention is really a practice that is reported for all countries they went through. Now, the violence rate as a function of time spent in each country, and also as a function of the number of people traveling through the countries. And you can see that some countries seem to be quite frequently reported as violent, Bulgaria or Hungary, for instance. Now, when asked about what they wanted to do next, 8.3% of refugees said they had applied for asylum in a Schengen zone country, and 81.5% were determined to go to the UK because 51.5% of these 81% reported having family in the UK. Now, the population in the jungle are mostly young single men, well-educated, few Syrians. We assume that they'd rather go to Germany, where they can get asylum much more easily. The length of journey varies greatly depending on the starting point. Some Afghans told us that, well, sometimes they can't even tell what sort of which countries they went through, and that they were put on lorries and would cross several countries in a day. There are minor health problems, but poor access to care. And in Calais, the major problem is that the thing is that they tend to report only on the most recent medical problems. These refugees suffered in their countries of origin, but also throughout their journeys, including on arrival in Calais. Now, of course, there are some limitations to this survey. Some people couldn't really remember so well what they had gone through, and also a lot of speakers of Tirrenia and exclusively Tirrenia. We couldn't find any interpreters for this language. But for Eritrean, we managed to talk to them in Arabic for some of them. There's an underestimated sexual violence, we think. And this is also a situation that changes all the time. Now, as far as we know, this is the first quantitative survey among refugees in Europe. And of course, this is something that can be complementary to qualitative surveys. It's important because it does document violence and the routes taken by refugees. We think it can also help with the advocacy for MSF. And this survey could also set an example for similar surveys to be conducted in Greece or Turkey. We would like to thank all these people from Epicentre, the Crash, MSF, who helped us to carry out the survey in Calais.